You are now listening to a Diamond in the Desert podcast, hosted by content creator Roshocker and former D-backs pitcher Trevor McKenna.
Welcome back, everyone, to Diamond in the Desert, episode 10. We are your host, Roshocker, with my guy, Trevor McKenna. 3 days away. The week is here. Opening day is right around the corner. How are we feeling?
3 days away, baby. Can't wait. Can't wait to see these guys get on the field. Today we got some breaking news. I'll let you take care of that one. Not the best news, but we'll talk about it. And some interesting information about baseball technology. A lot of fans don't know about.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get into this. And we are on the Believe Network. And remember, you can listen to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever else you can find a podcast on. And again, 3 days away, shout out to number 3, Jock Peterson, the DH for the Diamondbacks. Got a lot of power, and I cannot wait to see him in a D-backs uniform flashing that power. Now, we got some breaking news, and I hate to report this because we've been talking about this guy all spring, and we even had a full episode with him. Paul Sewald could be out multiple weeks per manager Tolo as he suffered a grade 2 left oblique strain. Now, he was having a great spring, incorporating a new changeup. He had 5 strikeouts, only giving up 4 hits, no earned runs in 6 innings pitched. One of the most consistent pitchers out there on spring. And, we're looking at it at who could take that spot. Potential players could include Scott McGough, who was the closer last year until Paul Sewald was in. And, Scott kind of struggled last year. His ERA was pretty high. And then we got someone, Kevin Ginkel, who looked really good this spring as well. Like, he had some nasty stuff. He had 5 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts, 1.8 ERA. So those are some intriguing names. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with those two. And I think somebody that could maybe take the spot of Kevin Ginkel and kind of that setup role would be Josh Green. I know we talked about him on the podcast before. He will be starting the year in the minors, but again, this might change now. He does have closing experience and in college and in professional baseball, especially when I was with him. He would sometimes come in the closer role as well and also the setup role. So could be a good option there as well. What I like to hear about Sewald, it is only a grade 2, right? If it was grade 3, we're talking about a complete muscle tear. That would be terrible, right? But so it's muscle 2, and it's on the left oblique string, which means it's his glove side. Maybe he was just straining, he was pulling his glove a little bit too hard. Not sure if it'll be a week thing, could be a month thing, but I think he'll come back even stronger. And again, happy it's not a grade 3 because that would be maybe possibly end of the season type of tear.
Definitely agree with that. And, Paul, go ahead, take care of yourself. Don't rush back. The Diamondbacks have a really good roster. I'm pretty sure they can keep the thing rolling until you return. And when you come back, we cannot wait to see that music hit, to see the new lights in that stadium for you. We can't wait for you to come back, Paul. So just take your time, rest up. Now, D-back Spotlight, we got something special. We're going to talk about baseball technology. Now, first up, we're going to talk about pitching technology. There's a lot of words that you hear out there that you might not know. A lot of terminology that is used, and a lot of things that have just been used because of this day and age with the technology that's out there. We're able to look at a lot of different things differently. Cool stats, or they look into the spin of a ball and how effective that is coming off of a pitcher's hand, and how it can be really deceptive for a batter that's looking to try and read what's coming at him. So we're going to jump into it. We got spin rate. I'm going to go ahead and kick it to you because you being a former pitcher, you practice this, you studied this, and you went out there and executed it. So I know you have a lot of great info for all of the listeners out there.
Yeah, definitely want to bring this to fans' attention. I know you guys get these buzzwords throughout a game or throughout a season and not exactly sure like what's going on, how it's being used, what's being analyzed. So spin rate's one of those things that I didn't use in high school. I didn't use in college, wasn't really accessible to me. And then I got to the professional level, and I'll never forget it. I'm throwing one of my first bullpens out in spring training, and the guy goes, "Oh, your spin rate on your fastball was like 2,800." I'm like, "What? How are you? First of all, how are you measuring that? That's really cool. But what is that telling me, right?" So spin rate is basically how many times a baseball spins on any given pitch before it hits the catcher's glove. So right when it leaves the pitcher's fingers, they have this slow motion camera that is basically measuring how many times it spins. Really, really cool. And as a pitcher, you want one of two things. You either want to be above the average spin rate or you want to be below the average spin rate. And I'll explain that a little bit deeper. My fastball range from 2,700 to 2,900 RPM, so rotations per minute before it hit that catcher's glove. So my changeup now, on the other hand, I wanted less spin because that means less speed out of my hand. Looks like a fastball out of the hand, but dies before it reaches the plate. My changeup, believe it or not, was hitting 1,200 or 1,100 RPM. So it was a lot less spin and more of a tumbling effect. This is really, really important to figure out as a pitcher and also as a pitching coach analyzing this information, how efficient the ball's coming out of the hand, but also what we can do to certain different batters that hit different types of spin rate as well. It even goes even a little bit deeper into that as well. So spin rate's really, really important. It is a crazy buzzword that a lot of people don't understand, but it's also really important to the game. And technology has allowed us to really get that metric, which is awesome.
So what is the average spin rate that you're trying to pass up?
Yeah, so it's really different on every single pitch, right? So I don't know if you guys remember, there was about 3 or 4 years ago in the MLB draft, they were talking about this guy had a curveball above 3,000 RPM, which is like unbelievable. Your averages are going to be sitting usually for a curveball or even a fastball, like a four-seam fastball, anywhere from like 2,500 to 2,600. Whereas pitches like a changeup, you want that lower spin rate. So you could be seeing averages of maybe 2,000 or below. And then crazy pitches like a splitter, right? They're almost close to a knuckleball. Splitter, you're talking under 1,000 spin rate. And knuckleball, maybe you're touching 5 spin rate, right? So it really depends on every single pitch, but it's also really important to understand the efficiency of that pitch. And then if we can increase that spin rate with how we put our fingers on the baseball, can also give us more movement, but also more deception as well.
And it's crazy because growing up, the only technology that I really knew about was how fast the pitch was coming. And, you had the radar gun, and everyone wanted to see someone that can, hit the three digits, 100-mile-per-hour fastball, or had a really nasty breaking ball that can really be deceptive for the pitcher. But now we got technology that can count the spins, and that to me just floors me. That's wild. What type of technology is out there for that stuff?
Yeah, so it's something called Rapsodo. So a lot of people don't realize when they go to a stadium today, there is cameras everywhere analyzing pitchers and hitters, right? And a little fun fact. So there's a documentary called Fastball, highly, highly recommended. And we even look at a simple technology that's been going back for decades is the radar gun, right? How hard guys are throwing. Back in probably the mid 1900s, when they really started working on trying to figure out how hard guys were throwing, baseballs were being measured at their speed when they were crossing home plate. And as time went on, it's when the baseball leaves the pitcher's hand, it's being measured. So you look at a guy like Nolan Ryan, right? Back in the day in the 70s and 80s and 90s, when he was being measured, it was actually halfway between when he was releasing the ball and before touch home plate. And they was calculating that speed because after you throw a baseball, it actually slows down over time, right? So on average, now it's being measured out of a guy's fingers. It could be 99 miles per hour, but only be 87 when it crosses home plate. It's actually it all depends on what wind is that day, what weather is that day, all these different, and then also like altitude, right? We talk about the Rocky Stadium. Altitude is really important in that as well. But Rapsodo is all over MLB stadiums. You just don't even realize it's going on. Everything is analyzing every single pitch, every at bat, everything.
That's so crazy. And we're gonna go ahead and get into spin axis. And how does that work with pitching?
So spin axis, I feel like a lot of fans actually don't know about. I feel like it's not really talked about during broadcasts or really any games, but I would argue probably the most important thing for pitchers. So you want to think as the spin axis is like Earth, right? So obviously Earth is on axis going around the sun. You want to think about the baseball coming out of the hand in the same exact way. So on breaking balls like sliders or curveballs or slurves, what that same machine, that same Rapsodo, on top of it calculating the spin rate, it's also trying to figure out what axis the baseball comes out when it flips out of your hand on a breaking ball. So there's different degrees, right? So for a slider, usually averages are like 25, 30%. And with these pitching coaches and these guys that help these pitchers will do is try to find that perfect degree that gives them the most deception, but also the most break, right? So one thing that's really important when we're talking about both spin rate and spin axis, you guys have probably heard me talk about this on previous podcasts, is throwing in the same exact tunnel. And what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, we talk about a fastball and a curveball. When a fastball and a curveball come out of your hand, we want them to look identical. They want to be almost exactly the same when they come out of your hand in that tunnel. But as you go through and it gets to the home plate, they change direction, right? So as a hitter, you see the same entryway, but it's got different exits. So you almost want to think about a baseball going into a little tunnel and coming out a different way during the exit. That's what spin axis is all about, is figuring out, okay, what axis and what degree do I need to be at to make sure I'm on the same plane as my fastball, but it breaks away from the hitter or even breaks into the hitter.
Now, we always hear the term, the batter is sitting on this type of pitch. And a lot of times, like you talk about that tunnel, if you have your pitches look similar, that's when you get that reaction where a player might buckle or, you see them like, kind of just their knees bend and whatever. What are some ways that players can really focus on, getting a good tunnel and, improving their spin axis on their pitches?
Best thing I can argue, even if you obviously don't have access to a Rapsodo, use your iPhone and use the slow-mo option. Any type of camera you have, use slow-mo, right? So what I would be interested in is zooming in after that video and seeing how that baseball comes out of my hand, okay? So especially on a curveball, one thing that we really talk about with spin rate and spin axis is something called the hump. So hitters, when a curveball comes out of a pitcher's hand and it doesn't come out well, there's a thing called a hump where they see it almost pop out of the pitcher's hand. So they're like, oh, that's a curveball. I know it. I know that spin. I see the hump. I'm ready to go. So if we can really work on our spin rate and get that curveball out of our hand quicker and not have that hump, that would really help. So being able to use slow-mo on our phones, on our cameras, see how it's coming out and be like, oh, I did see that hump. Let me try to figure that out. Let me change my position on my hand. Let me try to adjust the axis. And then take a slow-mo again and see if that hump happens. If it doesn't, great. That means the hitter's seeing the same exact thing.
Now, switching to the batters, there's a lot of technology that's used for them as well. And it's crazy because you see this word all over the place now. Exit velo or exit velocity. You see this on MLB The Show. You see this on any baseball game that you watch that's televised. And, exit velocity is like the biggest thing that's being talked about. What can you give us about exit velocity?
Yeah, that's the huge buzzword for hitting, right? Exit velo, personally as a pitcher, frightens me, right? I don't need to know Aaron Judge is hitting the ball back at my head at 119 miles an hour. I'm good. I don't need to know that. All jokes aside, it is a very, very important stat for hitters, especially, but even sometimes pitchers, right? Like, hey, did we throw the right pitch? It has a high exit velocity. We did not throw it in the right position, right? But as for hitters, it's, baseball is one of the hardest sports because we're trying to hit a round baseball with a round bat. So the higher exit velocity we have means the more exact, compact connection we have with the bat and the baseball, right? So if we're touching 105 plus, we know we got that perfect connection off the sweet spot. So what we really have to think about it as well is the bat. And I think a lot of people don't realize that as well, is there's like maybe a 2 or 3 inch sweet spot on a barrel of a guy's bat that he's trying to hit. A lot of times it'll hit on the hands, it'll hit by guys' hands, and that bat will break. Sometimes it'll hit the knob of the bat and go squirting almost like a swinging bunt. So being able to understand exit velocity, understand how the ball comes off the bat, and also try to increase that, right? So make sure we're working on our hitting mechanics as well to get our bat in the zone as long as we possibly can with as much power, get as much exit velo as we possibly can. And number one, it's a scary stat, but I mean, any hitter will tell you if you're hitting the ball hard, you're doing the right thing.
Exactly. And another thing that I hear a lot about is launch angle. And there was a year where they were really studying the launch angle. I've even seen coaches that were really training their guys to have better launch angle. And I always hear, this is kind of a catch 22 type of thing. You have the new studies of it saying that, if you have a really good launch angle, you can really drive the ball. You can really put, a good bat on it and the ball would just go sell. But then you have a lot of the old school that's all like, well, that's not good if you're trying to generate hits and it can slow things down. And you look at the stats from, the 90s to now. In the 90s, you did have a higher batting average, especially some of the top guys that will flirt with, 400. You think about the Tony Gwynns, and now it's more so, the batting average is lower, but we see an increase in home runs. I mean, it seemed like almost every year there's a record amount of home runs that's being hit per year. What can you tell us about launch angle?
Yeah, when we think about launch angle, the one thing that fans should especially focus on is the spin and also where the baseball is being hit at impact, right? So let me go through that. Spin. So when we talk about the Tony Gwynn's of the world, they were taught to hit the top half of the baseball, hit line drives, hit the ball on the ground, get base hits, get on base, move them over, get them in, right? Small baseball. Launch angle, right, is all about now hitting the bottom half of the baseball. We want to try to get backswing off that bat to put in the seats, hit more doubles, hit more triples. It's really just a new trend for baseball, as a lot of guys that went through the stats that really work on all those numbers figured out, hey, we can score more runs by focusing on launch angle, right? So if we have first and second and a guy hits a bomb, we score 3 runs with 1 out. But if we have first and second guy hits a double, we might score 1 or 2. That might be the end of the inning. They want to give the shot to every hitter to try to put the ball in the seats to make sure that we're running up the score. So you're going to not see as many ground balls as you used to back in the 90s or even the 80s. You're going to see a lot more pop-ups. You're going to see a lot more fly balls to outfield. And let me tell you, pitchers are adjusting to that, right? So guys that were used to being East and West pitchers who are just staying on that even plane with the belt of the hitter are now changing up their game. They're like, okay, if you guys want to work on launch angle, we're going to throw above your bat and we're going to throw below your bat, because that's the only chance we really have with you trying to put the ball in the air.
Yo, that's really good. And I was gonna ask you too, like, what were ways that you can combat it? But you said it simply right there. Pitchers are adjusting, and it rolls to playing chess against each other. Every time there's something new that comes out, how can you adjust against it? And we also have something called in cage prediction of distance slash hit. What can you tell us about that?
This is really cool. So I've actually experienced this myself, kind of got in the cage, just kind of messed around with it before. So this is also that Rapsodo system. And this allows hitters, let's say if it's raining out or if it might be snowing out, who knows what, they can go into a cage, set up this system. Not only is it going to tell them their exit velocity, not only is it going to tell them their launch angle, but as they hit the baseball, they can look at a TV screen and it's going to predict where that baseball ends up and prediction of if it was a hit or not. So let's say, for example, Aaron Judge is hitting, right? And he's in the cage. He hits one off the bat at 115 miles per hour. And it'll actually show him, hey, that ball went into left center field at 450 feet. Or we have Jock Peterson hitting. Hey, you hit that ball 109 off the bat, went into right center, and it's a double off the wall. It can actually predict through all that algorithm, all that information, computing what you're actually witnessing without even having to take a step on the field, which really helps hitters to always be able to be game ready, right?
Yo, that is awesome, man. Again, all of this is just to improve the game. improve each player. And I love that, we're actually taking advantage of the different types of technology there is. And again, this is all going to improve each player out there. And even for someone that's young, and I'm glad that you mentioned about using what you have, like an iPhone and using slow-mo, because a lot of us won't have the technology at a young age, whether it be high school or whatever, but we can take this info and, apply it to our game and, use whatever we have around us to really improve.
Definitely, man. Definitely. And it's pretty cool that even like MLB players are even using things like video games. Like I know a lot of starting pitchers that will use MLB The Show just to go through the predicted lineup, which is really cool. And now you even see VR hitting where you can put yourself in any stadium and face any hitter and visualize yourself hitting against them before you ever step in the plate in real life. Pretty cool stuff.
Now, what's been some of the top technology when you were, playing yourself? What was some of the top things that you love to use?
Definitely the slow motion camera, and they have these unbelievably high technology cameras where it breaks it down so slowly where I can see exactly how the baseball's coming out of my hand and I can make adjustments to exactly that. That was really beneficial. And then even technology of just putting a camera on the hitter while I'm facing them and seeing how they're reacting to certain things. Like, okay, let's slow down his hitting mechanics. Was he trying to get his foot down a little bit later because he thought a changeup was coming? Was he trying to get his foot down early? Was he changing his hitting mechanics to face me? How were base runners really affecting towards my mechanics and my pickoffs? Over just those little things that if you can always take video and to even photos and put yourself and analyze yourself in a third person view, it always helps because, when you're in your body, you can't see yourself from every angle. So being able to use those camera angles and those photos really go a long way, not only for yourself, but to see what's going around, around the field as well.
And make sure to download the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever else you can find a podcast on. We have our very last few games left of spring training, and we have some pretty good performances from a lot of different players. One I cannot wait to talk about, but we're going to get into Friday's game. The D-backs played against the Mariners to a 3-3 tie. Ketel Marte hit his first home run of the spring. Now, he's been tearing it up, but he hadn't had a home run yet until Friday. Ryan Nelson pitched 5 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned run, but hear this, 9 strikeouts. Insane. And even Ryan Thompson came in with 1 inning and pitched 3 strikeouts, no earned runs. What did you like from the performances on that day?
Yeah, Ryan Nelson, man, he's ready. 5 innings pitch, love to see that. And he's doing exactly what we just talked about today, about making sure that these guys are focusing on launch angle. Fine, I'll be north and south. I'm going to throw my fastball at 97 at the top of the zone, and I'm breaking off my nasty curveball, and you won't see it coming, right? So love to see it. He's ready. He's ready to tackle the mound on opening day.
Can't wait to see him out there. Saturday, the D-backs had a great offensive effort. D-backs 11, Giants 5. Corbin Carroll went 1 for 2 with a double and a run. Blaze Alexander also been hot, went 3 for 4, 2 doubles, 2 runs, 2 RBIs. We had Jace Peterson with a 3-run triple. Alec Thomas also had 3 RBIs, went 1 for 3. Backup catcher Jose Herrera went 3 for 4 with a run, 2 RBIs, and Luis Frias pitched an inning, struck out 2. What did you like from the performances on that day?
Man, I'll tell you what, I think Blaze has just been following Ketel Marte around spring training this whole entire time. He's eating the same thing that Ketel's eating. They go to the locker room together. They go to the weights together because Blaze is blowing up, man. It's like he's following Ketel's footsteps in spring training. He is absolutely killing it. And like I've said before, he's just blazing around. Again, really making it hard for the Diamondbacks not to bring him up. He's in every single conversation, especially with these injuries happening. He's going to be one of the first guys up, and I can't wait to see it.
Yo, I can't wait to see it as well. And then I hope he makes the opening day roster and he gets a lot of playing time. And if he can continue this, there's no way you can keep him out of the lineup. Sunday was a little bit ugly. Brewers won 14-4. Tucker Barnhart, though, went 1 for 2 with the run. Just found out today he's going to be sent down to the minors. Jose Fernandez went 1 for 3 with 2 RBIs. Merrill Kelly had a tough performance. He pitched 3 2/3, gave up 5 hits, 6 earned runs, a walk. He had 4 strikeouts. And then Humberto Castellanos pitched 1 2/3. He gave up 8 hits, 6 earned runs, and a K. So tough day for the Diamondbacks, but hey, spring training is almost done.
Exactly. Just a tough day for pitching. It happens. You're going to get hit sometimes. Again, still happy to see Merrill Kelly getting close to 4 innings. He'll be ready for opening day. He'll be ready for the opening series. So not too concerned. He's still getting his work in.
And again, speaking of opening day, we are getting closer and closer. We're going to be doing our next podcast on Thursday, which is right before the game starts. We're going to have this podcast out by 3 o'clock, and we're going to preview on Thursday the matchups that is going to be happening, which right now is not for sure yet, but it looks like it's going to be Zach Gallen versus Kyle Freeland. If you guys remember, Zach Gallen went 17-9 last year with a 3.47 ERA, while Kyle Freeland went 6-14, 5.03 ERA, but his last win came in September against the Diamondbacks, where the Rockies won 3-2. So I can't wait to talk about it. I want to talk about it now, but we're going to hold it for the next episode. All right, we have a letter in the D-backs mailbag, and it comes from Jack, who is from Boston, and he asks, if the Diamondbacks choose a different team name in 1998 during their inaugural season, what would have been another good name for them?
Ooh. Man, that's a good question. I want to go, since it's the desert, I think Scorpions would be really cool. Even with those colors they actually have, I think Scorpions would be a good name for them. If it wasn't I think Diamondbacks are perfect. Do not get me wrong. But I think Scorpions could work.
I like that. Arizona Scorpions. And, you can have a lot of different colors with that. It goes with the same jerseys, like you said. Probably a lot of, kind of what we got right now, the brown and the red and stuff. I think that would really be cool. I was thinking, we already have our mascot Baxter, who is a Bobcat, and maybe the Arizona Bobcats. They can run around with that, have your mascot's face on the logos and different things like that. The Arizona Bobcats, which I wonder, how did they go from Diamondbacks to having a Bobcat as your mascot?
Yeah, that is interesting. I guess you could say it's like the Phillies and the Fanatic. Like, where the heck does that come from? Right? No, I think they probably figured, like, kids that are below the age of 12 are probably not going to go up to a snake. That's probably pretty easy to argue, right?
You know what? That could be true. Baxter looks friendly out there compared to what a snake could look like as a mascot. So you might be absolutely right on that one. All right, y'all. That is episode 10, and I still can't believe we've hit double digits. Yo, it seemed like the time has really flew by. Remember to download the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts on. Tell your friends, tell your family, download the podcast. And this Thursday, we're going to have a big one. It's going to be a preview of Diamondbacks versus Rockies opening day. I am Roshocker with former D-backs pitcher Trevor McKenna, and we are out of here.
Thank you for listening to Diamond in the Desert podcast.